In my last video, I began to tackle the topic of what a Bitcoin should be worth, and started by comparing it to the value of a house, or more generally, to real estate. I made the case that houses should be valued based on their utility, and are meant to be lived in rather than invested in. If you haven't watched that video, you should check the link in the description. In this video, though, I'll go further into what makes Bitcoin valuable, and, spoiler alert, it's not because of its utility. When it comes to assigning a value to things, most everything is typically judged based on the practical uses it has. For example, wheat has a certain value because it can be used to make bread, pasta, and countless other related staple foods. Oil has value because it can be refined and used for gasoline or jet fuel, or even to make plastic, which itself has countless uses. And the price of a certain quantity of wheat or oil is based on the available supply and demand for them, based on those so-called industrial uses. But when it comes to something like gold, it has industrial uses: dentistry, electronics, jewelry, etc. But also monetary uses, meaning its value or price is often much higher than just what the industrial supply and demand would dictate. This is called the monetary premium, and for gold, accounts for up to 80% of its value. Said another way, the market price of gold is much more a reflection of the fact that people, banks, and governments use it as a form of money simply to store value, not because they want to use it for some industrial purpose. The simple fact is, gold is not highly valued because of its practical utility, despite what some gold advocates claim. Case in point, another commodity, namely silver, has even more industrial uses than gold, and yet it has a much smaller monetary premium, only about 35%. Why should this be? Isn't it strange that silver has far more utility than gold, but gold has a much higher market price than silver? Also, since silver is more abundant than gold, wouldn't it make sense to use that rather than gold as money? Absolutely not. I've made the point before, and we'll put a link in the show notes. Money needs to be scarce and doesn't need practical utility because it is the thing we use to buy other things that have practical utility. The past 5,000 years of human history also proves this point. Gold became globally recognized as the best form of money because, despite not having many practical uses, it had the right combination of properties that made it a good form of money and was more scarce than competing precious metals. One more way to drive this point home is to think about it this way. If silver has so many more practical uses than gold, then back when people used gold and silver coins as money, a silver coin should have been a more valuable thing to exchange for goods and services. But in those days, people had no intention to melt down the coins they exchanged to use for some other purpose later. They didn't care about the industrial uses of the metals. They were only interested in using them as money, and so 1 ounce of gold would buy you a lot more than 1 ounce of silver because gold is more rare, more scarce than silver. And other things being equal, the more scarce something is, the better it works as money and the more value it can store. 1 ounce of gold stores almost 60 times the amount of value as an ounce of silver, based on current market prices. But silver is only about 20 times more abundant than gold, so there's not a direct relationship between how scarce something is and how much it may be valued. Now take Bitcoin. As I've mentioned in several previous videos, there's an absolutely fixed amount of Bitcoins which will ever exist: 21 million. By current estimates, there are over 6.5 billion ounces of gold that have been mined, and that number will continue to go up as more is discovered and mined. Fact is, there is practically an unlimited supply of gold in the entire universe, so the available supply for both industrial uses and monetary uses will never truly run out. But that's not the case for Bitcoin. As I explained in a previous video, Bitcoin is completely unique since it has perfect scarcity with its fixed supply, which naturally makes it the best way to store value in the long run. In a future video, I'll dig even further into what that means and how to determine what the value of a Bitcoin should reasonably be. So be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell so you don't miss it.